Well, I think maybe we'll just start again with a round robin, just because I don't know who all is familiar with everybody else, although I think we are mostly knowing each other. Tracy, you want to go and introduce yourself, your parent center, your role in this discussion?
Sure. So I'm Tracy with also the branch and PAVE out in the state of Washington. So one of the top 12, and been engaged with fabulous work of all of our parent centers with military connected families via both of these entities. Have the pleasure of working with fabulous all of you for a number of years, as well as Yasmin and Barb. So excited about the top 12 and excited about our no-cost extension, which will go through September 30th. And then we're also in dialogue and working with our fabulous 4 regional PTAC providers, of which Terry and others are around. So we've been publicizing and sharing with them to put it out for wider circulation on the top 12 virtual conversations, and really value this time with all of you. So thank you. And I'm working from home, so I will mute myself on occasion because I have a nearly 16-year-old dog who had unplanned surgery yesterday. She's doing well, but she's a little moany from the anesthesia. So I apologize if you hear any background noises in advance.
Okay, how about Terry?
Hi, everybody. This is Terry Layton from ECAC, and I am part of the Region B PTAC. I'm the TA coordinator. And hi, Karen. How are you doing? She's my coworker.
Hi, Terry.
From afar. And I'm mostly just here to kind of listen in and report back to the region anything that seems relevant to them regarding military outreach.
Cool. Good to see you again, Terry. Elizabeth.
Hey, I'm Elizabeth Allen from Family Connection in South Carolina.
Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Laughlin. I'm also with ECAC, and I'm doing something kind of weird where I'm seeing you, but I'm not letting you see me because I forgot that this was a thing with video, and I got my hair like up in a weird clip and stuff. It's just not. It's not for public consumption, but I'll be able to see all the graphics and things today. So ECAC is definitely, we are in North Carolina. We are a big part of the top 12, and my side of the state's got lots and lots of bases. So over the years, it's been about 6.5 years now, I've kind of become our military point person, and that's why I'm a part of this and have really enjoyed it. I love the notes, by the way, so that if one of us does miss, we can still feel in the loop. So just happy to be here.
Oh, that's very nice of you to say. Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Smalls, and I'm from Formed Families Forward. I'm the Family Resource Coordinator. We do have some military bases, and we're trying to learn more about military families. Thank you.
All right. Abby.
Hi, I'm Abby Rivera with Family Connection of South Carolina, here in the main office in Columbia. And we are the state's PTI, and we're about, I want to say maybe less than 5 miles away from Fort Jackson.
Right there.
Yep.
Okay, who all else do I have here? I have a phone call here that's coming in from area code 253. Who do we have?
This is Doreen.
Hi, Doreen. Welcome.
Thanks.
Doreen, we're doing a little round robin here, introducing ourselves and saying where we work and what we do at our centers.
Okay, my name is Doreen Vandervoort. I'm a parent training and information trainer in Tacoma, Washington at PAVE. And I also work in the parent-to-parent program. So we do a lot of work with military families with Joint Base Lewis McChord.
Awesome. So good to, well, I can't really see you, but happy to see your phone number.
I can do that. I can figure out how to do video.
Yeah, let's see. I think Yasmin, are you still with us? Hi. Yasmin.
I didn't unmute. So I'm Yasmin Butler. I'm the program director for the Specialized Training of Military Parents, which is STOMP. We are currently contract with the Army, Air Force, Navy to go around to installations globally to do 1 and 2 day workshops. Often we've been lucky enough to invite and have PTIs from the parent centers and some of those installations they've been a great resource, offer their resources and more information. At times they've co-trained with some of the instructors.
That's great. Yeah, we've invited Yasmin to be with us because lots of times questions come up about upcoming STOMP trainings, and just and she's just like a wonderful resource for questions about things military. When I get stuck on things, I will often ask about the kinds of things that military families, for example, ask at STOMP trainings. These are all to the good. So, have I missed anyone? Has everyone had a chance to introduce themselves?
Vanessa's here. This is Vanessa Lewis from PAVE. I should be up on the phone number up there. It's not listed, the area code.
Oh, okay. It's just I have a somewhat
unmarked number.
I have a somewhat truncated view because I've got so many things up on my screens. But Vanessa, It's really lovely for you to come. I appreciate the fact that you called in. Okay, so we're going to start at the beginning. Before we plunge into our discussion, I wanted to let the people who didn't come really early to the call to know that Tracy mostly, has designed a beautiful short little PowerPoint that sort of sums up all the things that we've been talking about to date. Not everybody can make every call, obviously, and this also highlights some of the really key resources that have come up in the last couple of rounds. And after we view this, we'd love to hear if you feel this would be, we would like to disseminate this to everybody on the top 12 mailing list, which doesn't only include the people that have been coming to these sessions, but also the people that we'd love to come that haven't yet for one reason or another. So maybe you can give us a little feedback on how, the type of information that's on here, if we need to tweak it or what have you. So can people see my screen that says top 12 virtual discussion, or am I?
Yes, yes, there, Barb.
Okay, great. All right, then I'm going to start the slideshow, and this is who we are, the top 12 states. And we've got everybody, we've had people come from every state, I believe, except Kentucky. Is that correct, Tracy? Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just haven't happened to be able to get on the call. But what I find interesting about this, I mean, obviously, there are, if you're in a heavily military impacted state like North or South Carolina, boy, you know it. Washington State, where the eastern side of the state, Joint Base Lewis McChord, is like the biggest employer, bigger than Boeing, bigger than Microsoft. But what I find really interesting is how we decide what's a top 12 state. And basically, I use data from the military. The Defense Manpower Agency puts out demographics every 3 months. Not specifics, but totals. How many military from the Navy are currently in Virginia? how many military from the Marine Corps are currently active duty in California. And these figures shift around. Maybe 4 years ago when we first started as the branch, Alaska was part of what was then our top 10. And things keep shifting around. So we don't expect these states to be sort of exclusive. You know, there is impact even in states that don't quite hit that top 12 list. So I just think it's interesting to see who all is kind of in this boat with us.
Barb, this does not include retired military, does it? This is just active duty?
Yes, it's just active duty. I have some other data on retired and otherwise veterans families, but it's not on this slide. Is that something you would find useful?
I know we've got a large population of retired folks here too, as well as active duty.
Yes.
They come and stay. So
yeah, I think,
you know, retire here.
So here's what we've been talking about. In the first session was sort of an introduction, the issues that military parents are bringing to us and the centers, and what your wishes were for outreach and service to military families. And I still have that complete list of everything everybody mentioned. And the branch and PAVE have been using that list to generate additional resources. For example, I believe Alejandro Rivera and some other people in the first section brought up the question of grandparents and other caregivers taking care of military kids when you know, the service member was deployed, or whether there were difficulties with the family or whatever. But this is a fairly common occurrence in military families, and the families that Alejandro was helping really didn't know how to access necessarily all the services that were available to her grandchildren as military kids. So we worked on that. And if there's anything that you remember or any issues that are coming up that you feel would be helpful to, you know, to any parent center that is working with military families, please just shoot us an email. It's, you know, we are happy to do this. This is what we're here for. Our second session included a panel with Yasmin from STOMP and two of the ladies that are trainers for the STOMP program. And it was about marketing parent centers, your parent center, to military families, and how to use military family members who might volunteer at your center and get some additional outreach boost doing that. And then last month, again, one of the questions that was brought up in our very first session, why do military families keep getting sent to places where the school services are not really the best? And the answer is because the assignment process is not able to review the adequacy of school services in the school districts. They only have access to the families, they might have access to the family's IEP. They just assume, well, they have to assume that federal law, IDEA, you know, and the ADA, which apply to all public schools in the country, are being, those services and supports are available wherever they're sending the military family, if there are either Department of Defense schools or public schools. So they just really don't have any control over that, unfortunately. And then we talked a lot about how it is that military families get served within our parent centers, and how we all have slightly different structures, sort of like informal roles where people, you know, where somebody becomes, you know, sort of known for their military expertise, or in some cases, some parent centers have been able to specifically hire and designate people as official military family contacts. So that was kind of interesting to find all the different ways that that might work. And I've lost there we go. And then finally, the people, one of my interns and I have been able to reorganize the interactive maps on our website, and they are now arranged by region, the new regions A, B, C, and D. And now every map has an individual state map under their region. So that's really cool. That's a great tutorial, by the way, Tracy.
Well, again, that's what we want to do, is leave breadcrumbs. We've been doing a lot of things that were auditory, and when the notes come out, they're also in a linear fashion. So this was, for all of us visual folks, a recap that you just click on the bottom of the screen, the branch maps by region, by state, and then you go into your region and then click, you can get through. And so it also has these handy, looks like a little mini cell phone. You can drill down into any of these, like we have North Carolina shown on this slide, and you can drill into it by, widening it, and then you can click on any of those map icons and get the contact information, or you could just go to your state and download into this Word document that's the last option on the slide, and you could get all the contacts. So again, just a reminder to everyone, we're going to keep it to the general contacts, because again, Sally, who works in the EFMP, or Mary, who's the SLO, or whoever it is, they're going to change. And so we're going to keep it to more of the global point contacts. But again,
right,
the maps
like the EFMP office rather than an individual person in the EFMP office, that kind of thing, right?
Yep, so they've all been redesigned. So again, we're having the slides so that we'll send it out after the call for anybody who's been a part of these. So again, just so we can widen within your colleagues the partnerships.
One of the things that we discussed was, I'm sorry.
Barb, I just wanted to check the slide because, okay, go ahead. This is for the last conversation. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is one of the resources that came up as part of our conversations about military families when they PCS, and what happens if they're trying to maintain Medicaid services, for example, an HCBS waiver for their child. And we talked about the fact that, of course, some states don't officially have waiting lists, but whether they officially have waiting lists or not, families can end up waiting for services. And there are legislative efforts in lots of states to help military families maintain what's called their earned priority. In other words, if they've applied in one state, are they going to still be at the same level of eligibility in another state when they go to apply there? A fair number of states have passed legislation, of course, just to make life interesting. All the legislation is a little bit different from state to state, or gives certain benefits in one state and not in others. But if a family happens to come to you that's got questions about what their Medicaid status might be in this state, this information here, and you click on that particular block, will take you to another interactive map that tells you whether or not the state has passed or has pending legislation. And then, of course, it'd be great if we had all the information right there, but at least it points you in the correct direction. You can say, oh, Florida has a law. What is that law? You can go onto your state.gov website and figure out what that actually might say for military families. So it cuts a lot of the searching out. And now we have Stomp. Stomp's got its schedule very much filled out at this point. Yasmin, do you want to talk about this at all?
Hey, Barb, this is Sarah.
Oh, hi, Sarah.
Hi. I'm sorry to interrupt, but before you go on to Stomp, can I just make a public announcement? Before I forget. You talked about grandparents raising their grandchildren, and I think you said it was in session 1. Is that correct?
It was one of the questions that was raised in session 1, yes.
Okay. I am a grandparent raising my 3 grandchildren. And the parent center that I work for is for foster, adoptive, and kinship families. So we have some experience, though not a lot with military, but we do have experience with grandparents and other relatives raising children. So I'd like to send that out to you because perhaps there's something we can do to help others.
That's really, really awesome. And when I was coming up with the resources and stuff, with which are mostly like national, not state ones, but I look at your website, of course, because I think you guys are like in my knowledge box, you're like the go-to as far. So, you know, without actually picking your brains for that, I did look at all the resources on your website. So.
Well, we're happy to be the go-to.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. That's.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I just wanted to get that out before I forgot.
No, please, because we'll add that in the notes, because that's what the whole intent was always about with the top 12, is that we each are each other's, we have the wisdom in the room, and we can each be each other's resource.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you. Okay. Sorry to interrupt, but I didn't want to forget that.
No, it's a conversation.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So Yasmin, do you want to tell us a little bit about where people can find all this great information here?
So we've just recently added some pages to the PAVE website. And as you can see, you can go to the PAVE website and look where the programs are at. Scroll over the programs. I need my glasses.
Top or bottom, you can find it.
Yeah, and go from top, and then scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see where it says STOMP programs. There you will get all the way to, the right here where it says PAVE and to the right side. It has like a list of all our tour dates. And basically, like Barb said, most of them are completed. Like we have the dates solidified and confirmed. And you can attend. We welcome you to attend. Like I've mentioned before, we usually have already made contact between myself and Barb and you. We've made contact to invite you guys out to come share your resources. So, and one other thing I wanted to recap. I know Barb had went over, she said in session 3, one of the questions that came up was reasons for assigning military families here with 4 services. Another thing to note when it comes to military families and why that happens sometimes is PCSs are determined by the soldier, the airman, or the sailor. So it's who's that active duty. It's their assignment, not always necessarily the family. That's taken in consideration. It's just that soldier or sailor or airman. So sometimes that happens just kind of by default. Some branches of the military are more family friendly. I'm air quoting that, more family friendly. I'm an Army brat. It wasn't always family friendly for me growing up, but for us, it was like the Air Force was more family friendly than any other branch at one time, is what was always kind of told. So that is also, so when that question comes up, that can be an answer as well too. It's not necessarily up to the family. The duty station is being assigned to that active duty service member. So.
Wow. So so this second slide here on STOMP details some of the ways that not only the ways that your parent center can help participate in a STOMP training, but also what is available, budget-wise to help you out and be part of that process there. So if you have any, if you'd like to participate, you can contact Yasmin, and we'll help make it happen.
And the only thing I would add, and this is Tracy, is that, again, any parent center staff in any of those states, if you went back up to that last slide real quick, Barb, when you click on there and look at the tour dates of when it's coming, if you happen, back up the last one, if you happen to be in a part of your state where you border on something, you can cross over. I mean, I don't think, Yasmin, as far as attending, so staff can attend to learn and they can attend to co-present. So we just wanted to really be clear. We know we throw out a lot of pretty dense information and we were hopeful, again, the slides are totally obliterating what is best practice, but we're using it to impart the data and the information so that when you go to that, check out the tour dates to see where we're near, we're coming to North Carolina, we're coming to Texas and Maryland, and you can see all those dates. When you click to register, that's how your families and your staff can register. And then the agenda that's in the middle, again, people don't have to come for all 2 days. We really, really want to impress that on everybody, that if I only have an hour and I want to see what's happening for TRICARE and I need to learn that better, then I can show up for that part, and that's totally okay. So I just wanted to share that with everybody, that Yasmin and the crew have open doors for any of that time, and certainly we know that childcare can shift for you or families, and obviously you can also come and help on and co-present. So when that gets to that, we've certainly handled accommodations, mileage, and even flights in some instances, because our states are quite large geographically. So again, that would be connected to Yasmin.
All right, so this is what we call our shameless plug. Stomp is hiring. And we sincerely hope that if you've got people, you know, that you know of in your parent centers, military families that come to you that you happen to know, we'd like you to pass the word along. Anything else you want to say about that, Yaz?
We're hiring, as Barb has said, and our preference would be Washington, Texas, or California. It'd be nice to have someone on that side. It just makes it logistically just easier logistically on some instances. So if you know anyone and they're military connected, please pass on.
Yeah, like maybe your military families that you help know military families that are out there that could, like, you know, where possibly the spouse would like a lovely little part-time job that gets them to travel to other installations and even abroad. So we're just mentioning it. Okay, so that took a little longer than I was hoping, but I thought it was important. We're going to plunge into our topics now. Just before we head on into that, can you just give me right off the top of your head, do you think the information on these slides is going to be helpful for people who, both people who have been on the calls or people that may not have been on a call before? You can be honest.
This is Karen. I'd say yes. I think it's great information.
Okay. Terry, what do you think? Do you think this would be something that you would mind, that you think could go out to some of the, you know, not just the top 12 parent centers, but parent centers in your region? I mean, just thinking of it from that perspective.
Yeah, I think that I think any of this information is important, especially because we talked about last month how there are so many more military families that are out in the community and not necessarily on the base, who, you know, their kids are going to the regular schools and not, you know, the base schools. So I think it would be important for them to know.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks for the feedback. Again, I dipped down into the comments that, in this case, they weren't notes from our meetings. These were notes from the surveys that I do after some of the meetings. If you haven't filled out a survey, you might want to fill out the next one, just because this is another way that I get feedback. And, you know, sometimes after you've digested what's happened on a call, something comes up to your mind. And this is where, you know, this is where a lot of the good ideas come from. So these are 3 comments that showed up on the surveys. And they were under the heading of, what else would you like us to know about, you know, in other words, what is on your mind? So these were brought up by individuals filling out the surveys, and I have no idea who fills out the surveys. you know, they're anonymous. So if it was your comment, I hope I didn't mess it up. One is to, you know, that one of the issues is creating awareness not only with staff, but with the greater community. And I think in this case, I'm not gonna try to interpret it. The other one was more about military in the community, and then creating more awareness about the barriers military families face as equity issues, to be aware of numbers of military in our states and push that awareness out into the greater community. So for the purposes of our discussion today, my question to all of you is, what do these comments, what kinds of thoughts come into your mind or that you've been thinking on when you see these particular comments here? Not necessarily all of them together, could be just one comment. I'll give you a minute. I'm not going to point any fingers at anybody. It's a bit to digest. I'll tell you one thing that came up to me when I read these comments. And incidentally, these are on 2 separate surveys. More about military in the community. There has been rather a focus on getting onto the installations and questions about, you know, how to serve families through trainings or individual one-on-ones on the installations. And in fact, especially depending on the installation, many families don't spend an awful lot of time on the installations. They don't live there. They come in and they shop, maybe, or their kids might go to programs on the installation, but in general, most of their life is out in the civilian community. And the kids, as mentioned, go to civilian schools. So that was one of the first things that came to my mind.
Or the reverse of that. You know, in our area, we can have, in Washington State, we can have a lot of folks that live on the installation and hardly come to the community and don't really know all the wide array of community resources that are there. So, you know, I think we see both of that. And I think, you know, again, it's individual choice, but sometimes families only have the one car and that person's using it for their job. And they're pretty reliant on getting outside is a difficult thing when you have wide acreage of installations with lots of support there. So I don't know if other people are experiencing that for their installations and what is nearby them. I guess it depends on the type, like our joint base.
So I'm just kind of curious. Let me just throw a question out to a specific state here. You people in South Carolina, what is the sort of configuration for military families there? Do you see a lot of spread out? Do families hang out or mostly live on the installations? What's the story?
So I'll speak from what I know. To me, it seems like it's mixed because we do have housing, but it's not a lot of housing. So you have people who are inside the base that live inside housing and they hardly ever come out because they have everything they need there. The kids go to the school, they have the PX, it's a pretty good commissary, so they hardly ever come out. They have a hospital that services pretty much most of their needs. And then you have the others that live outside and they are pretty spread out because we have also, there's a base in Sumter. So we have families that live even, I don't know how far Sumter is from here. I think it's about an hour. And so they drive here for services or for therapies. It just depends. So I do think they're pretty spread out. But still a lot of them come to Columbia for, this is like their main point because Fort Jackson is larger.
Interesting.
I can jump in on that too. This is Karen in North Carolina. Just for an example, Fort Bragg is a huge Army base. It probably has boundaries with, I think I've been told, a minimum of 5 counties. So not only do families, some attend school on base, but they could be almost any place You know, they're in a big circle around the base. So I can see the need while we're talking to be sure that all those counties, you know, are knowledgeable about the challenges that the military families face. That's a lot of schools to keep informed, and that's just for one base.
Mm. Yeah, and just like any other, you know, type of organization, school personnel change, and the people
Right.
that were really well informed, you know, retire or move on, and new people come in, and yeah, and you're back to square one lots of the times because, you know, it's not, you know, military awareness is not something that's I know is not necessarily covered as an orientation process for, you know, new or in-service teachers. Should be, but it isn't. So what I found particularly interesting was this question on creating awareness not only with staff, but with the greater community. And I think whoever wrote this is, you know, we're talking about parent center staff here, I think, and saying, well, you know, what is our role as parent center staff in raising awareness of the needs of military families and military parents when they have children with disabilities?
Well, I think as we talk about like underserved populations and populations with extraordinary stress, that military families fall into that group in the same way that we look at minority populations, and that our contracts say we have a responsibility to do specific outreach to them. And I really like that they talked about barriers military families face as an equity issue, because it really is the fact that they're moving their family and having to restart accessing services. I think about how stressful just setup was as a parent. You know, for my daughter's initial medical and school services, to pick that up and take that on the road with me every 3 years would just create extraordinary stress and like really an impact to the level and type of services that she received, because there isn't that continuity, and that there's an equity issue just with that amount of movement. So I think that there is a really great responsibility for us as parent centers to just really reach out to these families, because they are experiencing significant amounts of stress and trauma sometimes. And in Pierce County, like there's 40,000 active military family members in and around Joint Base Lewis McChord. So that's a huge number of people. So I think it's pretty in my face as a person living so close to base. But I hear it all of the time in both sides of my work as a parent center staff and as a parent-to-parent coordinator. It is a really big issue for me that we really are like finding and reaching those families, especially the ones who are not on base, accessing services. And when I think about awareness out into the greater community, it's about using those grassroots tools, you know, like using parent word of mouth and using Facebook and using those community groups to really reach in and let them know, like, we're out here, we want to support you. And not just reaching into the EFMP staff or to the Army military services staff, like really looking for those key family leadership people who are going to connect us into that community.
I just wanted to add to that, Barb, that, you know, another way as far as creating awareness or just being aware of kind of what's going on in your surrounding area is it's really important to know, like, say, for Joint Base Lewis McChord or even Fort Bragg. Fort Bragg, if not, is one of the largest Army bases, military bases in the world, and just being aware of what type of base that is. All bases, they're labeled differently. Some are training bases, some are sustainment bases. So places like JBLM, Fort Bragg, you will see a higher rate of deployment. You will see a higher rate, specifically Bragg, you'll see a lot for families moving in and out, not every
Yeah.
3 years. It could be 1 year. Just because of the type of base that it is. Joint Base Lewis McChord. If a war starts tomorrow, Joint Base Lewis McChord is going to empty out as soon as possible. So just being aware of what type of bases you are surrounded around and what, what's really going on. Fort Benning, it's a training base. You'll see a lot of people coming in to train, basic training, entering the Army. So just the awareness of that, I think, is very helpful as well too, because then you'll know what type of family will tend to be there as well.
So
it's really true. I would just
Yeah.
want to jump in as Karen again. It's really true, and I know I've even noticed that when there are casualties reported, they tend to come from a place like Fort Bragg. You've got the SEALs there. You've got a lot of people that need to be ready to roll in 72 hours in the case of an emergency somewhere in the world. And I like that reminder that we really need to, maybe when we're thinking about what base and what role is the family playing, so we can really understand the things that they're dealing with. And I somebody mentioned about moving every 3 years. When I've been on Fort Bragg, it's 2-3 times a school year sometimes. So I appreciate that reminder, and it's something that I think we all, really do need to tell other people to be aware of.
So from you experienced people who have a lot of, you've seen a lot of people come and go on the bases. You've got a good feel for what the bases around you are like. Supposing we were to give this information to Parent Center staff in states that don't have that kind of sort of experience or intimate knowledge of what a base does, is there a quick way? I have my suspicions, but I want to hear from you because you may have a better idea. Is there a quick way for Parent Center staff who need to get up to speed quickly on what the bases in their area, what the installations in their area are doing, that they can find this out?
You would look it up. It'll tell you. You can just Google or look up on the website. You can look up JBLM, and it'll tell you what type of base it is. Look up Fort Benning, it'll tell you what type of base they are, and what they. Sorry, my dog, of course. And what's kind of going on there. What type of training or statement or whatever is going on, stability is going on at that base, what they're known for, and what type of, units would be stationed there. So, because Fort Bragg is Special Forces, a lot of it is Special Forces. So just off of that, you already know, there's a lot of different movement in and out. That's where you'll see a lot of families. There's a lot of single families that can happen at a drop of a dime because their soldier is out all of a sudden, and they may not have an idea of where they're at. So it's those types of added stresses too. But you can just look it up, and it tell you exactly what type of bases they are.
Mm. Very interesting. That was sort of my thought, because I've looked at a lot of military installation websites as I was learning this job, and especially as I was developing the maps. And yeah, a lot of the base information is front and center. They'll say home of the whatever it is. And the only time you kind of run into an issue with that is if people are, for example, saying, well, if you know that it's Special Forces, XYZ about it. Well, I think, this is where I think I would come in, is I would say something like, okay, so how do we know that Special Forces, is a branch of the services where people are, suddenly leaving? I mean, I guess we know this, it's in popular culture. So we just have to combine all that stuff in popular culture with what's on the website. What do you think?
Yeah, but I don't think, this is Tracy, and I don't know that it's a highly intuitive, because again, I appreciate the wisdom, that's here, because I just, while you were speaking, I decided, okay, let me go see about Fort Benning. Don't know it real well, and just thought, what would I learn from going there? To be honest, I can see it in the about section. But again, I would default back into you all in a circle to say, okay, so really what does that mean? Exactly the way you did that firsthand information, Yasmin. I think that's really helpful. Because it doesn't always correlate with my brain of, to everybody's point, particularly the PCSing and the frequency. I mean, that's highly, necessary information for us as parent centers, because again, we've all spoken on that importance. So thank you.
Tracy, I did the same thing with one of the bases here in South Carolina.
Yeah.
I felt the same way. I mean, I see what's there, but I don't know that I understand it all.
I'm right with you.
Somebody.
Yeah, and sometimes you can't really ask the military parents that you're in contact with. It's not something they can necessarily discuss in any kind of detail, or they figure, it's need to know or whatever. Yeah. Huh.
And we're lucky because Abby is a military spouse. She's Army. We've got someone here whose husband is retired Air Force. So they're definitely assets to our organization.
I would just cheat and just ask my husband to tell me what it means. And if he doesn't know, he's like, I'll find out, I'll let you know. But
that's not cheating. That's networking.
Yes, that's usually called internal in-house resource.
Yeah,
literally in-house.
So we've got a couple of in-house resources.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if, this is the kind of thing that, I'm thinking about some of the upcoming trainings I'm doing with parent centers in other regions. And I'm like, so is this the kind of information that might be helpful to some of these, like new staff or less experienced staff or whatever? So I'm going to bear this in mind. This is really useful.
Like Yasmina and Abby and others and Karen, like, cheat sheets on like, if this, it means what, right? So, I mean, you guys are seeing the cue, so I think that would be, because I don't know that we have any of that type of resource. I think it's, again, we've turned inward to internal knowledge and wisdom. So how can we elevate that so that, again, this is the, the last no cost extension for the branch up through September 30th. And we're doing work in the region. So we're looking at widening out that military connected knowledge and support. So I think that would be really helpful. But again, we're close to the end, so I'm going to zip it.
Yeah, I don't want to keep people over time, but what I really am kind of wondering is if you would like to continue the topics on this discussion as we go forward. Do we feel that, this is something that we could have a little deeper talk about, or something to think about how we could make some of these ideas happen? Some of the collaborative partners maybe that our parent centers are already, working with. Is this something they could help with? These are the kinds of things that are sort of floating through my mind as I look at these topics. Or alternatively, is there something that Tracy and I can help find resources for you all and discuss them at the next meeting or a future
You're
meeting?
saying chime in with the survey, huh? Is that what you're saying, Barb? Like they could let us know.
They can definitely let us know. It will be on the survey that you get, but if you have any thoughts about it now before we sign off, don't be shy.
And then we will circulate these slides minus a few of the content. And of course, if your colleagues and/or you have some tips before we send it out, or when we're circulating, let us know. Because again, a lot of information on how to connect with Yasmin. There's tons of installations coming into a variety of your states. As a result of that, the opportunities are there to collaborate and partner for our military connected families in what you naturally do. So please let us know how we can update or improve those as well as we go.
All right, ladies. It is, according to the clock on my computer, 3:58. That's because I'm in Vermont. And I think that you all have probably other stuff to do today. I just really love to see your smiling faces, but your faces, however you're feeling. And I just want to thank you for being here. And we're going to have another call next month. And I'll be sending that information out. It's probably going to be at about the same time during the month, a Wednesday, probably the third Wednesday of the month. But I'll double check the dates and you'll be getting the email about it. All right? Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.